Welcome, listener. This is Sebastian Nothwell here today with JP Rindfleisch IX.
Hello, hello.
JP is the author of cozy queer fantasy and strange fiction where whimsy meets the weird. Welcome, JP. We're delighted to have you on the pod with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
What can you tell us about your book, Mosswood Apothecary?
Yeah, Mosswood Apothecary is, I don't even know. I think it's like my sixth book, something along those lines, but it is my love letter to Studio Ghibli. I coin it as Studio Ghibli, but make it gay. It's a cozy queer fantasy adventure. It's about a botanical alchemist who is sent off on a research mission to a small valley town, and he discovers community, family, love. And it's also a bit of a commentary about community versus like corporations coming in and all those sorts of things. So it started off as a serial and then it became a book. And yeah.
Beautiful. Now, do you have a favorite character that you've created in this world?
Well, the little Freudian slip of the ferret. There is a ferret in the story, and it's a bit of a strange creature. It jumps in and out of the main character Rowan, his shadow, and it tries to steal his food off his plate. And it's a very cute little creature. I found that a lot of times when I write, especially cozy fantasy, I add in like one little strange creature. So this one has the ferret in it, and it's really fun to write sort of the silly, goofy hijinks of a creature that can basically teleport anywhere and steal whatever it wants to.
Always fun to have a mischievous little creature in the house.
Yeah.
So, what drew you to the subgenres you've chosen?
I have been drawn to cozy fantasy for a long time. Before that, I wrote all over the place. I think I started my writing career in the basement of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with a bunch of indie authors, and we destroyed the world. We wrote a post apocalyptic short stories. So that's where I started. Then I ended up in Dark Paranormal Academy with a co writer, and I just started to move closer and closer to writing queer characters. I myself am queer, and obviously I wanted to represent myself on the page a little more. And I didn't want to write tragedies and I didn't want to write coming out stories. So I really started to find a place in sort of this silly, cozy fantasy realm. I also have cozy queer paranormal as well. And I've just been enjoying that sort of genre where a lot of people say it's low stakes or no stakes. I think that the majority of cozy fantasy can fit in that realm, but I also think some of it fits in the realm of slice of life, of these people who aren't necessarily dealing with these big events, but then something big can happen. That's a lot that happens in like Japanese storytelling with Studio Ghibli films, which I would still categorize as cozy fantasy. And yet we have things like Princess Mononoke, which have that big event, and things sort of wrap up again later. And that's sort of the realm that I write in. I still call it cozy fantasy, but there is that like peak of high stakes that exists in there as well.
I do appreciate a form of storytelling that has stakes beyond, oh no, the world is in peril.
Yeah, yeah. I really enjoy that slice of life vibe, you know. I think that that's really where cozy fantasy shines is it focuses on a person's identity outside of them being a hero as well as a person's place in a community. And I think that that's probably why a lot of people are drawn to cozy fantasy nowadays and why it's becoming a more popular topic is because it has sort of this who am I if I'm not a hero sort of question. And I really like exploring that idea.
What are some themes that you love to explore or revisit in your writing?
I always feel like my stories have something big to say, and I always try to like slather on the cozy fantasy on top of it. So it usually is like whatever strong opinion I have of the time that I really need to express on the page. With Mosswood Apothecary, it was a lot of just dealing with the corporate greed of the current society and like what that looks like when a community sort of stands up against it and has, puts their foot in the ground and says, we don't want this here. With another previous book I have, Mandrake Manor, the commentary was really about conformity and a neighborhood of a bunch of supernatural creatures being forced into like cookie cutter suburbia and basically losing their identity along the way. And so it's the question of like, well, what is that level of conformity that we want to make? How much are we willing to hide ourselves? So that was sort of the commentary there. Another book I is coming out soon, The Alchemist Baker of Rosen, really talks about the idea of immigration and how a lot of times people are forced to conceal the best parts of themselves just so that they, don't cause any frustration or friction with wherever they've currently immigrated to. And so I was exploring that notion as well. So I do like to really talk about big topics, but then put cozy fantasy on top of it. Another, like, common reoccurring thing is, the queer commentary, sassy queer characters. I really enjoy playing with a lot of dialogue and language, and, yeah.
What stories inspire you? You've already said it's Studio Ghibli, but are there any others that really get your creative juices flowing?
Yeah, I have been on this kick of just wildly DNFing books recently to find the books that I enjoy. Before that, I will say that I refused to DNF books, and so what would happen is I would be in a reading slump for months, and I would read nothing. So I've been really cherishing recognizing what I enjoy in stories and being willing to say, this story may be great for a lot of people, but it's not great for me, and to put it down and move on. And through that, I have found a lot of joy in so many different genres. The ones that spark the most joy recently was Kevin Wilson. He wrote 2 books. One was Nothing to See Here, and that one was about a live-in nanny for a politician who is watching his estranged children. It's literary in one of the best ways, but then it has just that little strangeness, and the strangeness is, and this isn't that big of a surprise, it's revealed pretty quickly, that the children, when they get emotionally distraught, set on fire.
Oh no. Oh no.
It's just such a strange
Oh
thing,
god.
and the rest of the world is normal, it's just this thing that happens. It was a very enjoyable read. I'm learning that I really like snarky characters. There's a specific type of voice that I've just been drawn to, and it translates to so many different genres. Another one that I just read recently was Starter Villain, which has so much absurdity. It's by John Scalzi. And so those are the kind of books that I'm drawn to, is like a really strong, snarky character voice and absurdity for sure.
I do love some absurdism now and again.
Yes.
What drives your storytelling and motivates you to write?
Spite.
Hard same.
Hard same. Yeah, it truly is. It is spite. So when I was working the day job a long time ago, I was sort of caught in the corporate cycle, the corporate ladder, and a position was opening up for a manager position. And in order to get that position, I needed to take a supervisory skills class. In that class, we had to do a couple of different things, workshops, whatever. It was like weeks long. And one of the workshops we did was we had to write down all of the things we didn't have time for. Everyone else in the class was writing things like, I don't have time to do laundry. I don't have time to watch my kids or whatever. And I'm over here like, I don't have time to write. I don't have time to do artwork because so much of my focus, my energy was on work. Then we had to go to the front of the class and we had to read off our list. But instead of saying, I don't have time for, we had to say, I don't want to. So I had to say out loud, I don't want to write. I don't want to do artwork. And I vehemently disagreed. And that was sort of the moment that I was like, I want to do these things and I have to make space and time for that because I never want to be up in front of a class again and have to say those words because I refuse it. So that spite drove me to write. And I feel like everyone has the right to say whatever they need to express. I feel like I have a voice that I want to express, especially with queer storytelling and sort of integrating beyond the coming out stories, beyond the trauma stories, but have queer characters at the forefront and have them explore life in general and just be able to have that representation for people like me that didn't have it growing up.
Absolutely co-sign.
Yeah.
What do you hope to accomplish with your stories?
I just hope I bring a little bit of joy, maybe some tears. I do have some moments in the story that especially in Mosswood Apothecary that several people have messaged me like, how dare you? And I do find joy in that. But I do hope that ultimately there's some joy. There's people that are both queer that see themselves represented on the page, as well as people who are not, that maybe they live in a small town and they just don't know any queer people, and this is their way to just sort of have that outlet and just sort of understand other people's perspectives or understand how characters that aren't like them can be the hero of their own story or the main character. I hope that that's sort of the same for any other writer as well, but I guess that is what I hope.
What's the number one thing you want readers to take away from your books?
I want them to laugh mostly. I would say that that's the more recent work that I've been doing is a lot of joy with writing, let them, walk away with, okay, we did have a heavy subject in there, whether it's a commentary about conformity or capitalism or whatever, but we had a good time along the way. And that they can take these characters and they can, either hear them in their head when they, see something funny happen and they, need that little snark or sass in their own head. But I do hope that at the end of the day that they get a lot of joy out of it.
Spreading joy across the world.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Community is one of the most important things for me. And I think that it is one of the common things that I keep hearing from a lot of people, a lot of writers, is that writing is a solitary practice. And I disagree. I think the act of writing can be solitary, but everything around it involves so much community. There is so much to learn from other writers. And when we put this notion that writing is a solitary practice, we sort of lose the fact that there is this whole community around us and we don't have to do this alone. Now, as a full time author, I work in my attic and I am alone, but I get to go on Zoom calls and body double with other writer friends. I stream on Twitch and have the ability to have a community there. I'm not doing this alone. And I think that if I were set to my own devices and I was in my attic alone all the time, I probably wouldn't get as much writing done, or I wouldn't know how to do certain things or how to publish a book in general. My first step into claiming the author space was in that basement with 14 other indie authors. So I had resources with me right away. So I would say put yourself out there, look for community, whether it's local, online, and make sure that you are getting just as much as you're giving in those communities.
Wise words indeed. So where can people learn more about you and your books?
Yeah, I made it easy so that you didn't have to spell my last name. You can head on over to ninthbooks.com, and I also have it so that you can either go to the number 9thbooks.com or you can spell it out ninthbooks.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, JP.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. This was fun.
And for those listening, you can hear more right here, right queer, at this same place next week.